Have you ever had something you loved so deeply ripped out from under you by people who thought they had all the power? That's exactly what happened to me. I'd spent years building toward one simple dream: owning a boat, keeping it on the water, and letting it become my escape from everything life threw at me. The day I finally brought her home, tied her neatly in my slip, and stood back to watch the sun bounce off her polished hull, I felt a kind of satisfaction words can barely describe. But, in that very moment, I had no idea that this dream would soon collide with one of the pettiest, most power-hungry groups of people on Earth, our neighborhood HOA. And when they decided my boat didn't belong, I made sure to take away the very thing they prized most: their marina. At first, it started with whispers. I'd walk past neighbors on my way to the dock and catch snippets of conversation. "Doesn't really fit the look of the place," one would mutter. Another would frown at the way my sails fluttered in the breeze, like the simple act of enjoying what was mine was somehow an insult to them. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just small-town pettiness. But then came the first letter. A neatly folded notice stuffed into my mailbox, printed on crisp HOA letterhead, dripping with self-importance. It claimed my boat was in violation of neighborhood standards and demanded I remove it within 14 days. My heart pounded as I read those words. My throat tightened. This couldn't be real. I bought this property precisely because of the marina access. The real estate agent had sold me on it, telling me, "It's perfect for boaters. You'll never have to worry." Now, here I was, holding proof that I apparently did have to worry. I sat on my porch that night, staring at the dock, the letter trembling in my hands, and I felt the first bite of helpless rage. I tried reason at first. At the next HOA meeting, I showed up with all my paperwork, my deed, the slip ownership documents, the bylaws I'd painstakingly highlighted with sticky notes. I laid it all out like a lawyer presenting evidence in court. According to Section 3.4, I am fully entitled to dock my boat here, I explained, my voice trying not to crack. But they just stared at me with smirks plastered across their faces. The president, a woman named Cheryl, who seemed to live for moments like this, leaned forward and said, "We make the rules here. If the majority doesn't like something, it goes." Her tone, dripping with arrogance, made my blood boil. My fists clenched under the table. How could they just ignore their own bylaws? But it didn't matter. They had the power of collective intimidation, and they knew it. Over the following weeks, the harassment escalated. More letters, each one more threatening than the last. They started tacking fines onto my account. $50 here, $100 there. I'd find bright orange violation stickers slapped onto my boat's cabin window, like scars marring the vessel I loved. I remember peeling one off with shaking hands, the adhesive clinging stubbornly, as though mocking me. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might burst. I started losing sleep. Lying awake at night, I'd picture Cheryl S. smug face and hear the board's laughter echoing in my head. I felt small, cornered, powerless. Every time I walked down to the dock, I half expected to find my boat gone, towed away in the dead of night. My sanctuary was becoming a battlefield. The breaking point came one Saturday morning. I walked down to check on the boat and found 2 HOA members standing there, arms crossed, inspecting it like vultures circling prey. One of them, a guy named Brad who strutted around like he owned the entire waterfront, looked me up and down and said, "You better get used to dry land. That thing's not staying." My jaw locked so tight it hurt. I wanted to scream, to shove him into the water, to do anything but stand there silently. Instead, I bit down hard enough to taste blood and turned away. But inside, something snapped. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done being their victim. That afternoon, I poured myself a strong coffee and sat at my desk, HOA bylaws spread around me like battle plans. If they wanted war, they'd get one. I dug deep into county records, scrolling through page after page of ownership documents, property filings, tax assessments. Hours blurred into days. And then I found it. a detail so small most people would have missed it. The marina wasn't actually owned by the HOA. It was held by a separate corporate entity. And that entity, it was up for sale. I blinked at the screen, rereading the listing over and over. It felt surreal, like the universe had placed a weapon directly into my hands. The HOA thought they controlled the marina, thought they could bully me into submission. But if I could buy it, the balance of power would flip completely. The idea consumed me. I started making calls, talking to banks, pulling strings. I liquidated some investments, took out loans, even begged a cousin to co-sign on part of the financing. Every step felt like climbing a mountain barefoot, but I couldn't stop. My rage had hardened into determination. And finally, after weeks of nail-biting negotiations, the papers were signed. My hands shook as I held them, but this time it wasn't fear, it was triumph. I didn't just own a boat slip anymore, I owned the entire marina. The first HOA meeting after the purchase was one for the ages. They called it to discuss my ongoing violations. I walked in, calm for the first time in months, a thin folder tucked under my arm. Cheryl wasted no time. "Mr. Carter," she said, her lips curling, "have you removed your vessel as instructed?" I smiled. Slowly, deliberately, I pulled out the deed and slid it across the table. "No," I said, savoring every syllable. "In fact, none of you will be moving your boats either, unless you pay me rent." The silence that followed was delicious. Cheryl's face drained of color. Brad's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Someone in the back actually gasped. I leaned back, folding my arms, and explained the situation in excruciating detail. The marina was now private property. My property. Their slips, no longer HOA-controlled amenities. If they wanted to keep their boats there, they'd have to sign rental agreements, with me, at market rates. The room erupted. Shouts, accusations, threats. Cheryl slammed her hand on the table, screaming that this was illegal. I just sat there, tapping the papers with one finger, my smile never faltering. The law was on my side, and they knew it. Over the next few weeks, the fallout was glorious. Some board members stormed off in a rage, selling their boats in humiliation. Others, swallowing their pride, signed leases and sent me checks every month. The very people who once slapped violation stickers on my boat now had to answer to me. The power shift was intoxicating. But I wasn't cruel. I didn't raise rates to astronomical levels. I simply charged fair market value, more than they were used to paying, but not outrageous. The point wasn't to bankrupt them. The point was to remind them, every single month, that their arrogance had consequences. The revenue rolled in, and with it, I upgraded my slip. New decking, polished rails, better lighting. On the grand reopening day, I invited the whole community. Even the HOA board showed up, their expressions sour but silent. As they walked past, I stood proudly on my deck, my boat gleaming in the sun, the marina buzzing with life. My heart swelled with a satisfaction so deep it almost brought tears to my eyes. I'd kept my dream. I'd defended what was mine. And in doing so, I'd taken away the thing they prized most, their control. Looking back, I realize it wasn't just about the boat. It was about standing up to people who abuse power, about refusing to let arrogance trample on joy. They thought they could break me, but all they did was forge me into someone who refused to back down. And in the end, justice came. Not with fists or shouting, but with the stroke of a pen and the sweetest revenge imaginable. So, if you've ever been underestimated, ever been pushed around by people who think they hold all the cards, remember this. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud or violent. Sometimes it's calm, calculated, and hits where it hurts the most. And when that moment comes, the victory tastes like the ocean breeze on a perfect day. Because I didn't just save my boat, I became their landlord. And every time they write me a check, I hear the echo of that day in the boardroom, when their smug smiles finally shattered. That sound is the sweetest music I'll ever hear.